Okay, welcome to Accounting 320. This is the Fraud Detection and Deterrence course in the program. By now, you have probably already gone through a few accounting courses, or if you haven't, you're taking this course as an elective. This will be a really fun and exciting way to explore the concepts of fraud, how to detect fraud, and how to deter fraud, especially for those of you who are interested in the auditing space. So, let's talk a little bit about the course, what the course covers. So this course is a study of principles and standards for examining, identifying, detecting, and deterring fraud. The objective is to differentiate types of fraud, assess organizational characteristics conducive to fraud, and develop a plan to detect and deter fraud. So some things we'll talk about in this course include things like the fraud triangle, cash larceny, check tampering, skimming, register disbursement schemes, cash receipt schemes, billing schemes, payroll and expense reimbursement issues, asset misappropriations, corruption, accounting principles, fraud, within financial statements, whistleblowing, interviewing witnesses, and writing reports. It sounds like a lot. There's a ton of other stuff that we'll talk about in this course as well. One thing that I think we will definitely most assuredly cover are all of these types of fraud, and then a lot of other ones. Unfortunately, fraud is everywhere in business. It doesn't just touch parts that deal with cash. In addition to cash, you have other types of fraud, like financial statement fraud. And there's so many different examples out there. And so we'll cover a couple of those in today's session. And I'm confident through your readings, you'll examine a lot of other parts of fraud as well. So let's talk a little bit about the course, the syllabus and the policies. So let's take a look at the syllabus. We'll discuss the course policies, and we'll also take a look at the course layout. So I'm going to come out of our presentation, and I'm going to jump into the classroom. So your classroom looks slightly different than mine because I have all those fancy tools as an instructor, but I want to highlight a couple of key areas on your homepage. First and foremost is the announcements. I typically post about 3 announcements a week, thereabouts. Nothing too heavy, but I like to call attention to things I find that are very important. So the first thing you'll notice about my announcements is I'll welcome you to every single week. And I'll talk about what it is that we're going to cover during that week, what we uncovered in the previous week, things we'll cover this week, what you'll need to do to accomplish the goals for that week, and so forth and so on. And it's relatively it's the same format every single week. I try to make sure that I keep things consistent for learning. The second announcement will probably be something like I'm taking what you're learning in this week and I'll apply it to real life situations. And we'll talk a little bit more about real life situations further in the presentation. And then the third announcement every week will just be a reminder of what's due in that respective that respective Tuesday night. As you know, the university recently made a transition. We used to operate from Monday to Sunday. The week now operates beginning on a Wednesday and ends on a Tuesday. I'm still getting used to that myself, but I'm sure we'll work together and I'll remind you of those upcoming due dates. And that'll be the pattern for announcements. The second thing I want to call attention to is our calendar. I will have all of the important due dates noted on the calendar. So that way you don't have to go digging through the course, what's due, when's it due, that type of stuff. I'll have everything highlighted for you here. But just for information purposes, everything that starts in that respective week, so today's beginning of the first week, everything for this week will be due by Tuesday night at 11:59 p.m. And that'll be the Eastern time. And so that'll be the same process throughout the course. And a lot of your other courses in your program should be very similar in nature. Okay, so let's take a look at the syllabus. To get to the syllabus, go ahead and click on Content. And you'll come down, and it should be the first or second or third item on your list on the left should be called Syllabus. And then you'll open up your syllabus. And here it is. Wonderful. Okay. So I'm not going to read through this whole thing for you. You're all adults and you know how to read. And so I just want to touch on a couple of key points. Okay. So as you read through the syllabus, there's a couple of course outcomes, which these are relatively general in a sense because we measure them a little bit differently. But I want to come down and discuss a couple of key points here. Grading information. This is always an area of interest for students. Is how do we grade in this course? So this course is comprised of learning activities and participation, which typically include discussion forums. There's might be a couple small papers in there as well. You know, I think it's like weekly reports or something like that. I think it's what it's called. The other major area of the course, 30% of your grade, is comprised of a course project, which is a 3-part project, and we'll talk about that here in a little bit more in detail. Another 30% are the current event reports. There are 3 of those in this course, which we'll go into more detail. And then, of course, there is a final report with a kind of like an assessment and a presentation, about 20% there. And so I'll discuss these a little bit more in detail after we are finished reviewing the syllabus. So as I said, everything has a respective due date on it. The due date for content for a respective week is Tuesday, 11:59 p.m. of that respective week. The week begins on Wednesday and ends on Tuesday. So everything for week 1, which we just started today, will be due Tuesday night, 11:59 p.m. Very important. There should not be any late submissions for anything in this course. Unless, of course, you've discussed it with me before submitting late. For example, if you're being deployed we have a lot of students who are in the military. If you're being deployed because you're being deployed, please let me know in advance that, hey, I'm going to be in an area where there's no internet. I can't make my submission on time. Okay, just send me an email in advance. We have to be very mindful of due dates. It's extremely important. It's just like your employer. Your employer usually doesn't accept late submissions for anything. So why should this be any different, right? So please avoid submitting anything late. If you do end up submitting something late and you do not tell me in advance, I will assess a late fee. It's typically like 10%, okay, of that respective assignment. So please just try to avoid that at all costs. Very, very important. Participation online is mandatory. What does this mean? Discussions. As I said, there's a discussion and pretty much every week in this course. Your original post is due by Sunday night at 11:59 p.m. and your responses to 2 or more classmates is due by Tuesday night at 11:59 p.m. If your original post is a little bit late, it's okay, all right? But the overall point here is that for every single discussion forum, there are 3 posts, okay? One is your original response to the discussion prompt, and number 2 are responses to 2 or more of your classmates. that should be done every single week. Okay. Okay. Academic integrity. Every semester I need to bring this up. Very, very important. Okay. What is academic integrity? Every course in the accounting program has an academic integrity assignment component to it. Okay. Some of you have already submitted, which is fantastic, but I want you to be very aware of academic integrity. The university recently revised the academic integrity policies. What does this mean? Well, so beginning the semester, if you have taken this course before and did not complete it for whatever reason, please be aware that I will not accept previously submitted work. Okay, the university policy has changed around this. The policy is now the university will not accept previously done work for that course. Okay. There are a few exceptions to that rule. You have to have made arrangements with your professor prior to the resubmission of the same work. In most cases, they might accept it, but for me, I will not, unless you've made prior arrangement with me. That's the change in the policy. I will also point out that now in every single course at the university, we have embedded turnitin.com to check for plagiarism. Now, what does this mean? When you submit a written document, the system will automatically check for instances of plagiarism. It'll find exact matches on the internet. So I'm saying this to tell you that please do not ever, and especially in academics, you never want to use direct quotes, okay? Do not copy and paste an entire sentence or an entire paragraph. That goes against your academic integrity. In writing, we should never be taking exact sentences or exact paragraphs. We want to paraphrase. Paraphrase meaning you want to rewrite it in your own words. But still, you still need to include the in-text citation and the appropriate reference. It's very important that you do it that way. If your percentage from turnitin.com is high, I will then do a further review of your paper and identify these instances and then point it out to you. Typically, the error is that you have a ton of references, but you're missing the in-text citations. That's very common. So try to avoid that. You want to make sure you have your in-text citations and your references. Another error might be you copied the paragraph, you put in the citation and the reference. The error here is that you shouldn't be copying an entire paragraph. You should be paraphrasing. Another reason for a higher percentage match is that you're using common phrases, which is fine. That happens. But if I see that entire sentences come from similar sources, I'll talk about it with you. So the overall point that I'm getting at here is that you want to paraphrase everything. Please never, ever, ever, ever use direct quotes or pull entire paragraphs or sentences from anywhere. Rephrase them in your own words and still apply the citation and the reference for where you found that work to avoid any academic integrity issues. Does it make sense? Are there any questions about that to our friends on the call? We're good? Okay. If you have any questions, please let me know. I'll be happy to answer them. And of course, you're more than welcome to email me as well. Makes sense. Great. Wonderful. Thank you so much. Okay, moving on, participation. When you make your posts and discussions, I'm looking for understanding. I'm looking for demonstrating critical thinking. You're going above and beyond the minimum, okay? What does this mean? When you respond to your classmate, please don't just say, oh, I agree, oh, that's nice, you know, all these low-level stuff. Please don't do that. Engage your colleague, your classmate, you know, with a couple of sentences, make it engaging, ask them questions about their post, that type of stuff. You want to add value to the post, not just compliment them. It's nice to compliment people, absolutely, of course, but you want to go beyond that. You know, engage them, ask them questions about their post. If I ask you a question in the discussion forum, please respond. You know, we want to make it as engaging as possible, right? You know, make this a community type of environment rather than just question and answer, question and answer. We want to go above that. We want to make this a really engaging community, right? So just be mindful of that when you're making your discussion posts. And in your discussion posts, you should also be using citations and references. Where did you find the work? And you know, give the credit where it's due, that type of stuff. That should also be happening in your responses to your classmates as well. It's very important. Okay, this is in every class, this beautiful thing called the Accounting Toolbox. It has a lot of really good resources in there. I recommend that you check it out. Okay, now we're starting to get into the good stuff. The content in the course, current events, project report, the presentation, back to academic integrity, as you know, it's very important. And then, of course, toward the end of the syllabus, you'll find the other really important stuff, the schedule. When is stuff due, what's going on in which week. As you can see, we have a very busy schedule ahead of us for the next 8 weeks. So I do recommend you get started early. Get started as quick as you can. Very, very important. Okay, so since we talked about the syllabus, let's talk about that detail we were just talking about, the project description. So in that syllabus folder, you'll find this thing that says 320 project descriptions. Just go ahead and click on that. And here you'll find the descriptions for the respective projects and assignments in this course. The first thing you'll notice in this week is there is a discussion prompt asking you to select your first current event report topic. Before you write a report, I need to sign off on that case that you're writing about. Reason being is because it has to be current. Okay. Every semester, I get a student that says, oh, I want to do the Bernie Madoff case. Oh, I want to do the, you know, the other big one, the Enron case, the Bernie Madoff case. These are super old, okay? Just because they're big names doesn't make them current, all right? Current means it happened in the recent 12 months of this course, okay? Trust me, you can find a ton of cases that happened in the last 12 months. In fact, you can find cases that are happening this month. The thing with fraud is that it happens all the time, unfortunately. It's a part of our daily lives. And it happens in so many different ways. So please look for something that happened like this month, last month, somewhere in the past 12 months. I promise you, you'll find something that's interesting to you. And I'll show you some great resources to take a look at to find those current events. So what are we looking for in this report? So 3 things I'm looking for is your ability to do some research. It should increase your understanding of particular types of fraud, and it provides an opportunity to think critically. Okay, so what do you need to do? You'll select and read a current event article discussing a fraud case. And believe me, there's a ton of them. You'll write, your first paragraph will be a summary of the case, okay? Now, please, in this first paragraph, don't just copy and paste stuff about the summary, because we all know that the summary is usually the first paragraph in the case itself. Please don't do that. Don't just copy and paste. You need to write it in your own words. That paraphrasing thing I was talking about earlier, super important. Paraphrase the key facts, the key findings. And don't just do bullet points. It has to be an actual paragraph, okay? Use in-text citations and references, all that good stuff. Very important. That'll be the first paragraph. And then there's a couple of other subsequent paragraphs. Paragraphs 2, 3, and 4. This is at least a full page. It's typically about 2 pages thereabouts, not including the reference page. Okay, and definitely not including a cover page if you have one. Okay, full 2 pages, single space, most definitely. These should be about 4 or 5 paragraphs in length. Okay, full paragraphs. We're not talking 2, 3 sentences. That's not a paragraph. A paragraph is like 6 sentences, 6 to 8 sentences. The other paragraphs should identify these key areas, the key issues posed by the case. Who are the stakeholders? What were their rights and obligations? Who are the individuals involved? What were the costs and trade-offs? What's the situation involved, and what kind of commentary is there on it? Who was impacted by the fraud, by the situation? And it could be a lot of people. It could be one person. It could be multiple people. It could be entire groups. It could be governments. There's a lot of different stakeholders involved, right? Point out any key questions you believe should have been considered by the readers about the case that would add substance to learning. So what does that mean? What are key questions that you have about the case? What are key questions that should have been asked that weren't? What are things that would attract the readers in this case? And then paragraph 5 should be write a paragraph to express your opinion. Okay, not the case's opinion, your opinion. Because as you know, every court case, there's an opinion that's usually drawn about that case, whether it be in a newspaper article or the judge's opinion or the court's opinion. That's nice and all, but what's your opinion about the case? And then support your opinions from facts from the case. So that's always a fun paragraph to write. It can get really detailed. And of course, comment on surrounding circumstances. It should be fun. Make some fun of it. Okay, it should be a fun type of thing. This is a small thing up here about what is skimming. There's a couple of articles there's a book for this course, but it's not like a regular textbook. It's just kind of like additional information. Talks about skimming. As you know, there's 2 different types of skimming. There's credit card skimming. There's cash skimming. There's a couple of other subsequent parts of skimming. We'll talk about that. This just kind of tells us the differences. But primarily in this course, we talk about cash skimming instead of credit card skimming. And we'll talk all about that as the course goes on. The project for the course, there's a 3-part project. Well, actually, there's more than one project, but there's a 3-part assignment to this course. A case presentation, there's an investigative project design, and then a deterrence measure to design. We'll talk about that when we get a little bit closer, but I do want you to be aware that there is a project in the course, and you really need to read up on these details. And again, as we get closer, we'll talk more about it. Probably in our next session, in our week 3 session, we'll talk more about that project. And then, of course, again in week 5. So I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that final report is due in week 7. But we'll talk a lot about that before we get to it. Any questions, comments, or concerns up to this point? Are we good? Yes, hopefully. Good so far? Okay. Again, if you have any questions, just feel free to interrupt me. Be happy to answer. Okay, so those are the key assignments in the case. And then, of course, each week there's usually a discussion, that type of stuff, little interactions. But those are the course layout. Very similar to your other courses. This is it's modular based. There's each week has content in it. There's an Ask the Professor area. You can also always email me. I'm very quick to respond. I'm in the classroom almost every day. So if you go to your discussion area, there's a nice little Ask the Professor feature. Feel free to ask your questions there as well if you can't find another place for it. And if it's something personal, just email me. I'll be happy to respond. That's one of the good news is that you have me as your professor. I'm here full time, so you all are my primary responsibility. So I'm very quick to respond. Okay, that's the course layout. And we discussed the assignments and projects as we went through that course layout. So if there's no other questions about that, let's go ahead and jump into week 1, which is where we are today. So week 1, in this course, there's a ton of reading opportunity. There's a lot of really great resources out there. This is just a few of them. That first one there, that's a whole 80-page book. For those of you who are interested in becoming a CFE, that is a wonderful, wonderful opportunity to read up on some current stuff. I recommend that you consider joining the ACCT. I think that's a great opportunity for those of you who are interested in the world of audit. Also the IIA, if you're not a member already, that's another good one. For those of you who are interested in getting your CPA, definitely please become a member of the American Institute of CPAs. That's the AICPA. And if you're interested in everything else and you're not really going after the CPA, but you definitely want to become like a controller, please talk to me about joining the IMA. And I can set you up with the student rate, stuff like that. Really good reading opportunities. You'll be able to find some really good stuff here. Every week has a nice fancy reading list. I strongly recommend, it's not required, but it's strongly recommended that you review all that information because it will help you with your discussion forums, your reports, and your assignments, so forth and so on. So this week, you have your introduction forum, your scavenger hunt. It's in every course. I know it's just kind of helps you to get familiarized with the course layout. The current event topics, very important. Oh my goodness. That's the first, this is me signing off on your first report, right? So, and we'll talk about that here in a second, in a little bit more detail. And of course, your academic integrity assignment. What is this? Every course in accounting has the academic integrity assignment. You will complete it's a brand new academic integrity tutorial. Some of you already made the submission, and that's fine. It was based off of your previous semester, right? When you went through the tutorial. But it's literally launched this morning, as of today. There's a brand new academic integrity tutorial. There's a couple of certificates involved. So at the end of each module, you'll earn a certificate. If you could, please submit your certificates that you earned in the academic tutorial. That's a requirement. In addition to that, there is a short essay that you should write on academic integrity. It's a review of a couple of videos found in YouTube. It's kind of a cool assignment. I kind of like it. So in week 1, coming back into the classroom, I posted this video. I kind of found it's of substance, the Sarbanes-Oxley Act. You know, this is kind of how fraud became a really big thing because of Sarbanes-Oxley. We now have this thing called transparency for investors. Your introductions, it's a quick little discussion. You introduce yourself. I'll respond to every single introduction post. Week one, you'll take a look through your weekly readings and you'll ask your questions here. And you should respond to 2 of your classmates in there as well. The scavenger hunt, it's just kind of looking through the classroom materials and making your posts. Here we go, the important stuff. Current events topic. Oh my goodness, I love this one. Okay, so current events. This is where you'll find for approval. You'll post, and I'll say if it's approved or not. You need to make sure that you provide the source of where you found the topic. Please, very important. Okay, so coming down a little bit, where is it? Oh, I'm sorry. You know what? It's in the discussion area. In the discussion area, under this current events toward the top. So here's a really great resource. I just added this one in. It's awesome. It's the FBI's website on white collar crime. Because you might be asking yourself, Dr. B, how am I going to find a recent event, something current, 12 months? FBI website. Okay. Okay, so I was just talking to you all about how stuff happens every day. There's literally thousands of fraud events that happen daily. Okay, here they are. FBI's website, white collar crime. White collar crime is basically the FBI's fancy way of saying fraud. Okay, here's one. They happened today. Charleston taxpayer and mother indicated for fraud. Let's see what this case is. And the FBI's press release tells us a little bit about the case, that they perpetrated a $600,000 fraud. How did they do it? And it gets into the details, right? FBI's investigating them since 2014. So forth and so on. It talks about that particular case. It's just one of many. That happened today, okay, that it was released today. There are a lot of other ones that happened recently, especially now during COVID-19. There are tons of frauds being perpetrated by companies and by individuals. Here's one, again, today in Cleveland. One of your classmates, there was one in the news, and I saw it recently on Fox 5 here in Washington, D.C. Area. A student had posted about, which one was it? It was really good too. There was a COVID-19 fraud that a local person perpetrated. I thought it was great, so I knew about the case, so I did approve that one. Let's see, where is it? Oh yeah, DC man charged with $2 million Paycheck Protection Program fraud. Here's another one, Nevada woman, COVID-19 fraud. There's tons of it. Unfortunately, people take advantage of good programs that are designed to help people. So that website, that FBI website I just showed you under the discussion forum, that very top, wonderful, excellent resource when it comes to finding a great case. All you gotta do is look for fraud in the name. I promise you'll find it. Okay, there's tons of it. It's so ridiculous how often frauds happen in this country. But it's something that we need to be aware of. And there's a lot of different kinds of fraud, as you know. So that's week one. Week two, which starts next Wednesday. Again, these optional Zoom sessions are every other week. So I try to cover the 2 weeks just as a quick review. Week two, which starts this coming Wednesday. Here's your reading list. It's very similar to the last one, but nonetheless, it's a decent reading list. What we'll do in week two, you'll read through. There's a discussion post on the readings, just like there is this week. Also in week two, your report. You're based off of the article that you find this week on the fraud for the recent the current event report. you're going to actually write your, 2 to 3 page report, and it's due next week. It's due at the end of next week. So what does that mean? You have 2 weeks from today to finish your report. Yeah. It shouldn't take you that long, honestly. I think it'll take you probably a couple hours. You'll submit your report, and then you'll select your second article for your second report that you'll write, and so forth and so on. It's a fun class. I promise you, you'll get a lot out of it. It's a pretty interesting, very interesting course. Now, we got 5 minutes left. I want to play a real quick game. Okay, it's called Fraud or Not. So there's a awesome little video. Hopefully it'll play. I'm going to click on it. It's a YouTube video I found. I really like this one. It's about embezzlement. Actually, I think it's like 3 minutes.
There are 6 main types of embezzlement.
You all can hear it, right? Please just let me know.
Yes.
You can hear the video. Yes, Coleman, you can hear it?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Let's take a look at those now. Siphoning. This is common in frontline workers in stores or restaurants. They devise a way of pocketing money from the register without creating discrepancies between recorded sales and the cash drawer. Check kiting. To do this, a criminal makes a series of deposits and withdrawals between several banks. By taking advantage of the float time between banks, the perpetrator gets an interest-free loan. A person that handles the bill-paying function at a corporation would be able to perpetrate this crime. Lapping. Embezzlement of this type is found in the area of the business responsible for incoming payments from customers or vendors. A customer working in this capacity could use bank deposits for several companies and change the allocation of the funds to cover up their own embezzlement of cash payments from certain customers. This accumulation of funds obtained while in a trusted position of fiduciary responsibility would qualify as a money laundering scheme. Payroll. Using the company payroll to illegally take money is another type of embezzlement. A corporation will often have a manager or an entire department involved in the calculation and completion of payroll duties. By adding friends or family that are not employed with the company to the payroll, they would be able to effectively steal from the company. Kickbacks. Employees involved in purchasing activities in any organization could be prospective embezzlers through kickbacks. This scheme involves a vendor from whom the company purchases materials in the course of their business, who agrees to give an employee money or gifts if they continue to buy a certain product or service from them. These situations often involve inflated prices, since the vendor is likely trying to profit personally as well. Overtime. Another way that people can commit embezzlement is through the falsification of overtime records. An hourly paid manager from the local branch office of the bank could do this. If they punched in their card at the beginning of their shift and then left at the end of their regular shift, say 8 hours later, without punching their card, then 2 hours later, pretending to have forgotten something, they come back and secretly punch out their card then. If the manager is continuing to do this over time, he is guilty of embezzlement by falsifying his overtime records. These examples of embezzlement make the relationship of an embezzler much more clear. They must be in a position of authority in the organization and responsible for the property that they are attempting to steal.
That was a really cool video, by the way. I forgot where I found it, but it's good video. Okay. Unfortunately, I've seen all of that in my career. I've seen every single type of fraud that video just discussed throughout my 15 plus years of being a financial controller. So I recently told you all about my, well, I'll tell you after we go through these questions, I'll tell you a real quick story and then we'll call it a day. About an experience I had. Okay, so those of you in the room, I want to ask you these two questions, and I would like your response. You can either unmute yourself and let me know your responses, or you can type it in the chat, whichever one you feel comfortable with. Okay, so here we go. First question to Danielle, Comlin, Natasha, Virginia. Here we go. An employee gives a customer a discount without a discount code or coupon. Is it fraud or not fraud? Comlin says fraud. Fraud, fraud, fraud. You all say fraud. Okay. Yes, absolutely it is. Yes, this is definitely a fraud. So typically what happens you'll find is, and I've seen this hundreds of times. I see it probably almost every time I go shopping. You'll have somebody working at the cash register. A family member comes through the store. They make purchases. They go to you. You cash them out. Given the good old friends and family discount, but you don't enter any information about that discount. That's fraud. Okay, very good. Next question. Oh, this is a good one. I like this one. This is a good question. A sale of a service is rendered as unearned revenue before the service is rendered. Fraud or not fraud? Not fraud, not fraud. Not fraud, not fraud, not fraud. Exactly, yeah, it's not a fraud. This is standard accounting principles, right? You know, when in a service business, it's unearned until you perform the service, right? When you perform the service or deliver the goods, that's when it goes from unearned to earned. Very good. Oh, I'm so glad you guys remembered that. That makes me feel so happy. Okay, great questions. Okay, so now let me tell you my story, and then I'll let you all go for the rest of your day. Okay, so let me tell you my story. Here's what happened. As I told you, I worked in the service industry. I was a financial controller in the hotel business. Okay. I was at Radisson Hotels for a long time. Even before then, I was in retail. I've seen a lot of things, okay? In that type of business, you see everything. So let me tell you about servers and bartenders, what I learned. And I worked as a server, right? I worked as a bartender. This is common. I've seen bartenders, the customer will come to the bar and order a drink. The bartender will go over to the register and not enter the drink in. They'll hit no sale. They'll put some of the cash in and pocket the rest. Or also what I've seen, the bartender will enter in the customer's drink order as a different kind of drink at a much lesser price, put in that cash, and pocket the rest. What else? Oh, drink coupons. Oh, those are the best. There might be a voucher involved that the bartender doesn't ring through, or the server doesn't ring through. I've seen all that. If you want to know where the best cash fraud is, look at local bartenders and servers, for sure. Front desk agents, you're like, Dr. B, how can a front desk agent at a hotel commit fraud? Well, a couple of night vouchers that aren't rung through properly, letting their family and friends spend the night at the hotel at a friends and family discounted rate, but not actually ringing it through as such. Accounting staff. How does accounting staff commit fraud? Well, you've seen tons of that in a lot of other examples. Like, for example, I've seen accounting staff that will enter a bill into the system. They'll cut the check to pay that bill. This is accounts payable I'm talking about. The accounts payable staff clerk will enter the bill into the system. They'll cut the check for that bill and then void the transaction. Okay. The check was already printed. The transaction was voided after the check was printed. And of course, it never went through. On the accounts receivable side, double booking receivables. What do I mean by this? Well, okay, so you made the sale. Let's say it was on receivable, right? So the customer pays later. You ring it through as cash, and then you ring through the actual receipt when you got it. Yeah, that's doubling your revenue pretty quick, right? It violates the revenue recognition principle, as you know. Oh, back of house staff. Oh my goodness. Okay, so in a hotel or in a retail setting, you have people that work in the back of the house too. These are people that do not interface with the customers. Dr. B, how can they commit fraud? Well, inventory, right? So in a retail setting, you might have somebody stocking shelves. A box goes missing, winds up in their trunk instead of on the store shelf, doesn't get entered into the receiving side. Oh, so as you know, as you probably learned through your other accounting courses, we have a process of checks and balances. And so when I receive inventory, I have the purchase order, I have the check that was used to pay the purchase order, I have the receipt, meaning the inventory receipt, you know, the packing slip that comes with the inventory. And I usually staple all that stuff together. That's my paper trail. And I do a physical count of that inventory. Well, you know, sometimes you could do one of those kickback things that the other video was just talking about, where the vendor will give you the extra stuff, and it just doesn't get into the system. So that's how back of house can commit fraud. Those are my stories. Those are stuff from my experience, and they really happen. You know, that stuff happens all the time, and I've seen it all. I really have. So I just like applying stuff to the real world experience. Is super important. You know, that you all get a good understanding of how this stuff happens. Okay, so that is the end of our presentation for today. I hope you all got something fun out of this and you learned a little bit and we're getting to know each other. This is just the first day, of course. Are there any comments, questions, or concerns from our guests who are in the room? Danielle, Coleman, Natasha, Virginia, are there any questions that you all may have? You're good? Yeah, great. Okay, so as you have questions, as you're going through the course and you're like, oh, Dr. B, I need a little bit more clarification. What does this type of fraud mean? You know, I'm having trouble finding information on this, whatever it may be. Please feel free to ask me. I'm here to guide you along the way. Think of me as your mentor as you go through this course. You know, I'm there with you every step of the way. So if you have questions, comments, concerns, please let me know. I'm here to help you. You know, you all are the reason why I am here. You guys are the reason why I love teaching. So please, if you need anything, or if you want information on like, if you're looking for internships or jobs or any of that good stuff, please let me know. I'm here for you. So I thank you all so very much for joining me today. And I wish you all the best. And I'm here for you. So if you ever need anything, just let me know, okay? I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording now.